Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. And we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. I got to take a deep breath and slow down. I just ran up the stairs. We're about 2 minutes behind schedule today. Went and gave my baby, who is strangely naked, a hug. It is Thursday. It's October the 31st. It's Halloween. Happy Halloween. I guess my tiniest one's Halloween costume is nothing. She is a cute little naked baby, though, so that's something. All right, we got a ridiculous show put together for you. I've got, looks like, 18 clips, maybe 17 clips, something like that. A whole bunch of stuff. It's just absolutely absurd. We've moved into the realm of the retarded. There's no other way to say it. We are living in the most unserious time. We have one team calling the other team garbage, got the other team dressing up like garbage men. It's so silly. And we're 5 days out from what both teams keep calling the most consequential election of our lifetimes. It's so bad. Yeah, I'm overwhelmed by like how ridiculous our timeline is. I've got a bunch of different news articles that kind of indicate the same, and also something that has been going on the sly that you better listen to, because the consequences of this should be about policy, like really bad policy. Like day one came in and did a bunch of executive orders that destroyed our economy for 4 years. 4 years of bad policy. And I've got an example that I didn't even know was a thing that we're going to be talking about today. If you're not familiar with what happened in the Gulf of Maine just a couple of days ago, you need to stick around for this one. All right, before we get started, I've got two things. I've got a Patriot Coolers tumbler that's sitting next to me full of coffee. It's my second or third. So we'll go ahead and talk about my friends over there. It's patriotcoolers.com. They are the longest running sponsor of the Kyle Seraphin Show. They are a tool, I will say, and a product that I have been using for long before I ever thought about having a podcast. I used them when I was an FBI agent sitting in a car doing surveillance. You can get your own. You don't have to customize them with Suspendables merch stickers. You can actually get them pre-engraved with their laser etching machine, which is very cool. At patriotcoolers.com, there is a link in our show description which will take you to the Kyle Seraphin collection. If you are normally an audio listener and you've never seen how good these things look, do yourself a favor, scroll down in the show notes and click on it just to take a look, because you can see they're a really outstanding looking product. They will set you apart. Nobody will steal your coffee mug in the office because they will know it's yours and they will know that you will come for them. Check out the Major, which is their new 40 ounce. It's an awesome tool. It has a really comfortable handle. For those of you who don't think you need a handle, try a mug with a handle and your life will change. It's my favorite. Promo code KYLE saves you 10% over there. Again, KYLE. Do it in all caps. Save yourself 10% and support the program with an outstanding product. All right, I'm going to take a big sip of coffee again, and I'm going to start you off. We don't always start off with like a palate cleanse, but I just need it right now. And this is a song. This is like a shandy. I think it's called a sea shandy. I really like this style. So this is a guy singing about coffee. We're just going to get kicked off on this Thursday morning, the last day of October before we enter election month. Here we go. I'm not going to sing it for you.
There once was a man that was sleepy, so the man brewed himself a pot of coffee, but the coffee did not awaken him, so he drank more and more. Soon then anxiety comes, buzzing, jittering vibrations. Now cause of caffeination, he's just anxious and tired.
And that is it. Yeah, shandies are really good. They make you want to do hard work like pull lines and put up sails and pull in fish or whatever the heck it is. Big fan of that style. We're going to be talking about fishermen in a little bit, so that kind of made me think about it. Also, we can just dedicate that song to our friends that are out on the West Coast that listen to us live, for those of you that get up early enough to do so, for our folks in Arizona that are doing the same thing, like my folks. There we go. All right, first story of the day. I'm going to cover it down. It's coming from my friends over at Catholic Vote, who do a great news service on the Loop. This one says the Supreme Court of the United States of America is allowing Virginia to remove non-citizens from the voting rolls. I just think we should say that one more time. The Supreme Court had to step in because the DOJ, the federal government, is suing the state and just lost in the highest court of the land because they were trying to allow non-citizens who identified themselves as non-citizens from being on the voters' rolls and being eligible to vote in the state of Virginia in violation of federal law. This is absolutely absurd. This is such a no-brainer. This shouldn't have even ever been a suit, but it lets you know, again, bad policy decisions, horrifically anti-American, stupid, foolish things that say that people who checked a box saying, I am not a citizen, were eligible to vote in Virginia under the previous paperwork. And as they purge these people, 1,600 people, which is not enough to do anything anywhere, but since we are dealing with close elections, it's worth doing all the things you can to secure your voter rolls. They kept these people on. This is dumber than what goes on in California. I am still eligible to vote in California per California. I moved out of California in June, on June 9th, actually, on June 9th of 2009. That was the last day that I lived in California. I enlisted in the United States Air Force, and on June 9th in the evening, I was at Lackland Air Force Base, and by June 10th, I no longer lived in California and didn't go back. I am still an eligible voter according to California. I get a ballot every single election, not just the presidential ones. Now, they have a policy that after 3 missed presidential elections, you should no longer be able to be a voter. They should remove you automatically and purge. After 12 years, they'll purge you, except I haven't been purged. I just checked. I get an email from the Secretary of State in California on a regular basis telling me that my ballot is in the mail. I've never once seen one of them because I do check. I've never seen one filed, but there's a ballot that goes to somewhere in Burbank, California with Kyle Serafin's name on it. Very, very strange. Totally absurd. It's even dumber for people who say, I am basically by statute not permitted to vote, being put on voter logs. And then when the state says we're going to clean those up, the federal government steps in to sue them. And for whatever reason, CNN found this to be a breathtaking problem. It's breaking news, and it's a very unusual move for the Supreme Court to come in and do this. Here's very serious journalist. We're going to have kind of a trend of CNN fools. Jim Acosta. You remember when Trump was in office? He was pretty funny. Now he thinks that he's a real serious guy. He was much more fun to clown when he was out in the world and Donald Trump was making fun of him to his face. Now he's sitting at a news desk, and here you go. Breaking news coming in. People who aren't allowed to vote will not be on the voter logs per the Supreme Court in Virginia.
Breaking news now. The Supreme Court is allowing Virginia to purge suspected non-citizen voter registrations. This is a big decision from the Supreme Court. Just came in moments ago. I want to go straight to CNN's Paula Reed. Paula, what can you tell us?
Jim, this is incredibly significant because this is one of the court's first significant decisions ahead of next week's election. Here, they are allowing the state of Virginia to continue with a program that will purge suspected non-citizens from its voter registration rolls. Now, this is a bit of a surprise because the trial court and the appellate court sided with the Biden administration that objected to this purge, saying that the state cannot, under federal law, remove large groups of people from the voter rolls within 90 days of an election, though there is nothing stopping them from investigating individual voters and removing them from the voter rolls. Now, former President Trump has seized on this issue in Virginia, as have other Republicans, as a way that they should be able to remove suspected non-citizens, calling it sort of a common sense move. And here, a court divided across partisan lines, siding with Republicans. Now, Governor Youngkin, who is implementing or attempting to implement this program, he has issued a statement saying, quote, "This is a victory for common sense and election fairness."
Yeah, a victory for common sense and election fairness indeed. Notice the coverage there, though. It's a divided court among partisan lines. What that tells me is not anything about the partisan lines or the divide. What it tells me is that people who decided that non-citizens should not be removed are fools. People who say that that's unacceptable are out of their mother effing minds. There were 3 dissenting justices. Interesting. They're all women. They're all libs and or leftists. Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is now Brown Jackson, but she used to be Jackson Brown. I don't know. I think Jackson Brown has a much better ring to it. In any case, these are the dissenting justices. It was a 6-3 decision, which is actually a very strong decision. It's not what I would really call a split, not in the current Supreme Court. It means that the loonies went for looniness. How is this even a contentious issue? Except, we're going to cover further on, the DOJ has an outcome they are looking for, and they've already told us what that looks like. The DOJ's interest is in handling voter suppression. They are not interested in the voter fraud that most of us are concerned about. And if you're not interested in fraud and you're only interested in getting more people to the polls, whether they are legally eligible to be there or not, is crazy. It's the will of the people kind of nonsense. It's this we must save our democracy. It's the tyranny of the majority. It's majoritarianism, whatever you want to say. It's not acceptable stuff. It's not American. Kind of commie, where everybody can vote your rights away, including people that don't have a right to vote your rights away. Brought me to a second little kind of comedic moment. I don't know why. I've been sitting on this clip for a while. This country used to be a proper nation. We used to have all kinds of freedoms, and then you were responsible for what you did with those freedoms. In my lifetime, I'm 42 years old. In my lifetime, I know that people in Texas could drive with an open container because I saw my parents on occasion do it and do it responsibly. You could have a margarita in the front seat. And as long as you weren't drunk, you could drive because they trusted you. They, being the state, knew that you were responsible for your own freedom. There may have been some really bad consequences to this because people are irresponsible all the time. But isn't it interesting that there has been a time while I've been on the planet where drinking and driving was not a criminal offense, as long as you weren't drunk and driving, which is the actual criminal offense. And the people who were worried about that changing said, if you take this away, we're running towards communism. We've referred to it as fascism here. I think more accurately, we heard Thomas Sowell yesterday talking about how they're not really socialists per se, because they're really more fascist. Fascists are people that control the government, and then they lean on private industry. It gives them an out as well, but they lean on private industry in order to get their preferred outcomes, as opposed to taking possession of the private industry and making it public. We're seeing that the government leans on and does what it wants with corporations, and then those corporations follow suit if they want to be successful. That's what fascism looks like. So these people are probably not correct about it being communism, but I understand the sentiment, and so will you. Again, a little segment, we used to be a proper nation. Just get a little kick at the accents and their concern about freedom. Americans didn't used to vote away their own freedom.
Any attempt to restrict drinking and driving here is viewed by some as downright undemocratic.
It's kind of getting communist when a fella can't put in a hard day's work, put in 11, 12 hours a day, and then get in your truck and at least drink 1 or 2 beers.
They're making it laws where you can't drink when you want to. You have to wear a seatbelt when you're driving. And pretty soon we're going to be communist country.
Pretty soon we're going to be communist country. You know, what kind of country is it if a man can't go and do a hard day's work and then be able to have a couple beers on the way home? Honestly. Especially in places like Oklahoma, where I went to college, beer is barely even beer at like 3.2% alcohol. I'm just saying, I understand the sentiment why people would want to have not alcoholic beverages in a car. But I also understand the idea that liberty is dangerous and we should err towards that. And we used to right up until right now. This stuff changed in the 90s. This stuff changed in the early 2000s in some states. It probably changed earlier in places like California. It wasn't a thing. It was kind of wild. I remember moving as a kid from California and then realizing that was a thing, and people could take they could take their drink to go. You could put a long neck in and take it with you. Okay. The reason why I say that we used to be this proper country and why some of this stuff is really wild, the fascist sort of instinct to lean on private industry, It also means the federal government is going to do what they want with our resources. This is more towards the socialist, communist apparatus. But they don't do it with government. They do it with private industry. And that leans towards the fascist piece. This is from U.S. News and World Report. It's not a place that I usually go for news, but it was one of the few places I saw covering this story. The United States Gulf of Maine offshore wind auction has attracted scant interest. How interesting. The Biden administration put up the Gulf of Maine, the bottom rights for ocean floor that is U.S. property. And it offered, looks like, 8 leases. Only half of them drew bids, and they brought in about $22 million. They refer to it as a deep malaise in the industry. That's not really the wildest part of the story. The wildest part is they went to investment groups in Spain and France, and we sold our ocean floor at the cost of what? Destroying fishermen, destroying people who make a living pulling in food from the United States territories in the ocean. This is a guy named Jerry Lehman. I found this clip last night. I was appalled by the idea that I've never heard this anywhere else. I don't know anybody else talking about it. Forget about the whales. Forget about the sounds. Forget about the things that are dying because of it. How about just the human cost of taking people's living away? And this Jerry Lehman is in charge. I think he's the CEO of the Maine Fishermen, or it's the New England Fishermen Stewardship Association. He's talking to 3 fishermen who look like regular dudes who work with their hands, which used to be a thing that Democrats claimed that they were interested in. I think this is why we ended up with the story about garbage and Donald Trump wearing a trash man outfit. The Democrat Party used to try to claim that they were the color of the working class, of the blue collar people. That is not the case, not anymore. And the Biden administration is proving it by selling off the place where men who work with their hands earn a living and support their families, and have been doing so for generations, most of them. Watch this little video. Listen to what he has to say.
Hi, I'm Jerry Lehman, CEO of the New England Fishermen Stewardship Association. Today I'm down at Cundy's Harbor, Maine, to talk with a few of our NEFSA members about the offshore wind lease sites that went up for bid yesterday on October 29th, 2024, here for the Gulf of Maine. With me today is George Prince, Guy Labita, and Matt Gilley, all members of the New England Fishermen Stewardship Association. So, George, we'll start with you. What do you think?
Well, it's just real discouraging that, first of all, our government was willing to sell the Gulf of Maine, and that they sold it so cheap. I mean, $50 an acre. I mean, a pair of tennis shoes cost more than $50. There are a couple pizzas. It's ridiculous how cheap that they sold us out for.
So would you be willing to say, George, that a bucket of lobsters is worth more than $50?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, 5 lobsters is worth more than $50 right now. So it's kind of ridiculous that you could easily catch 5 lobsters in that acre of ocean. So it's a real shame that they let it go so cheap.
And now we got Guy Labita, member of NEFSA as well.
Yeah, you can't even buy a meal at McDonald's for your family for $50. And keep in mind that it's $50, that's a 33-year lease, okay?
Matt, what is your take on this?
Not only was it extremely underpriced, but it was sold to foreign companies as well. I mean, they have shell corporations here in the U.S., but we basically just sold our ocean to France and Spain for pennies on the dollar. I mean, like others have said before me, if fishermen had the ability to lease the ocean at $50 an acre, we could create far more revenue than these offshore wind farms could ever dream of creating.
Let's just leave it at that right there. We leased out the ocean floor for 33 years. They got really excited. The Biden administration got a $21 billion. What was it? They got a $4.4 billion set of leases in their initial offering, which was off the coast of New York and New Jersey in 2022. And then they thought they were going to get something big by doing this up in Maine. And we're talking about very, very small amounts of money, relatively speaking, $50 an acre. And as these guys appropriately pointed out, in this economy, $50 an acre is almost nothing. For 33 years, it's absurd. That's locked in at a horrifically bad price and bad deal for the United States. That's what happens when the people that are in charge hate you. They hate the people that work. They hate the people that earn a living. And these used to be the sort of stock and trade of the the Democrats' talking points. That's where they went. They looked for people that worked with their hands, that had rough hands and worked outdoors and had faces that were blown by the wind. It's wild. And that's for wind energy. This is for their green new garbage. Isn't that incredible? This is the same administration that the first couple days in office, they did those 21 executive orders. They just, there was a nice little clip of Bill O'Reilly, who's not my favorite all the time, but he was out there smashing Mark Cuban, who seems like he's completely lost his rocker. And he was just smashing him on all the stories about why things got more expensive under the Biden administration. If we go back in time, and we can do that, we can go back and watch the tape. It was only 4 years ago. The story is that they screwed up our ability to drill, that fossil fuel companies were demonized and told that they could not gather the thing. And so they didn't make the investments that they would normally do. They quit building pipelines. They quit doing drilling leases. They made it harder for them to get after some of these drill leases. And everything got more expensive. That's what this entire election should be about. Border security, sure, that's a big deal. But the economy got off track in many ways because of these executive orders that essentially screwed up our economy in a predictable fashion for the idea that they were going to be able to do windmills. And that's why, I guess that's what they don't respect the voters. They don't respect people that do hard work. This is an elitist party, and it has been. There's a reason why more billionaires support Democrats. You think they're really going to make them, quote unquote, pay their fair share? It doesn't seem very likely. This is Byron Donalds. He's from Florida. He's talking about the garbage comment. Biden got an awful lot of top cover from the national media. I don't know why that is, but here you go. This is Catholic Vote again. I have two in a row. Columnists are talking about the coverage of Biden calling Trump voters garbage shows why the media trust is at a historic low. It's at a historic low because they are gaslighting us. They are running top cover for this guy. So we're going to do a little segment on this. I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to set out to prove that not everybody is crazy, but if you're in the mainstream media, you don't have a choice to have your own opinion or a reasonable opinion. It's your job to push talking points at this point. They're not journalists, not in any conventional sense. They're advocates for a position that they think you need to hear because you're too dumb to make your own decisions. One of the things we've seen on our comments, I had somebody refer to me as condescending and say, I think that this show does the opposite. What we do is we show you some information. And I think this is at least the perspective I bring to it. I trust the people that listen to the show to make their own decisions. And most of you don't agree with me all the time. And that's fantastic. You shouldn't. If you agree with me all the time, then we should probably be married. And since I'm already married to someone else, that's not going to work out. You shouldn't even probably agree with your spouse all of the time. Having a small amount of dissent to figure out how to get things better is how we do things as human beings. Here's Byron Donalds laying it back on them over at CNN as they try to run top cover. This is actually a day and a half old at this point.
Biden said that he's talking about the comedian, not supporters. What's your response?
My response is that the first statement from Joe Biden is the one that he truly believes. He does not think that people who disagree with him or his party, who support President Trump, are Americans. He thinks that they're garbage. That's a fact. And the reason, what I go back to is 4 years ago, around this same time, it was Joe Biden that went on the Breakfast Club, and he famously said that if you couldn't vote for him, then you weren't black. It's the same Joe Biden. Made the same type of statement 4 years ago. So this is consistent with who he is.
It's perfectly consistent with who he is. It's the way that he talks about people. It's the reason that he went out in front of Independence Hall and he did that famous speech, the red speech in Philadelphia, right? Where he raises his hands and he says, it's the extreme MAGA Republicans. Well, you've added the word extreme and you've added the word MAGA to what is, at this point, as far as coalitions look like, probably more than 50% of this country, or at least 50% of the voting bloc. I read an interesting article that says this idea that it's 50-50 split, that we're exactly like on a razor's edge or a knife edge between Republican and Democrat in this nation. The idea is that that's probably false, that that's actually media gaslighting, that the numbers probably skew much more dramatically. But some people in the GOP don't get out and vote. That's part of it. And a lot of people think that it's so narrow that they sort of cede that territory, that it's acceptable that either person could win. But that doesn't appear to be the case right now, at least not to me. There's a lot of opinion polls that lead that it is much more aggressive, leaning towards people who are going towards Donald Trump, who's not strictly speaking, conservative, and has brought in people who are not conservative into his little, what people called the all-star team the other day. I don't know if it's an all-star team. It's certainly not an all-star conservative team. But Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong Democrat. I'm not mad at her. I just don't trust her. RFK, not conservative. We share some ideas. So all of these people coming together, that consensus-based government, that actually is how Americans used to work. And more importantly, I think, Americans used to put presidents in office that knew that their job was to be the president for everybody, and they didn't get to speak for a party. We actually have laws that are supposed to stop people from using political office and from government-appointed jobs to do political talking points. You're not supposed to be able to do that. That's the purpose of the Hatch Act. It's to stop the partisan nature of human beings' individual thoughts and make them do the work that is out there for the public good. For some reason, we've left that alone. CBS also running some top cover. This woman was one of the moderators for a political debate very recently. You'll remember her. And she's very upset that there's no grace for Biden. How do you give grace to somebody that refers to you as someone that is a deplorable, that is a piece of garbage, that is not worth voting, that you are not American because you don't agree with somebody else's policies on how to make America better? You know? What kind of grace are you really afforded at that point? Here we go.
We are now 6 days out from Election Day. Nearly 60 million votes have already been cast in early in-person voting and through the mail. And the latest polls suggest the race could not be tighter. Both campaigns are locking their focus on the battleground states. Vice President Kamala Harris rallied in North Carolina and Pennsylvania today and is in Wisconsin tonight. Former President Donald Trump was in North Carolina earlier and tonight is also in Wisconsin. He landed in Green Bay just a short time ago and then pulled this campaign stunt, speaking to reporters from a garbage truck, proof that he and his supporters are giving no grace to a gaffe by President Biden, where he, in his explanation, inadvertently called Trump supporters garbage.
He just inadvertently called them garbage. Or did he say the quiet part out loud because he's an old man who's senile and that's just how he talks? He's bombastic. He's an a-hole. He seems like a jerk all the time. He's the guy that says he wants to take Donald Trump out behind the gym and have a fight with him, which would be catastrophically bad for him, just based on weight and the ability to balance on their own 2 feet alone. It's crazy. It's sideways. It is what it is. That's where we're at right now. I've got a little video of not actual Joe Biden, but Dank Brandon, which is a little character that has been created by Prison Mitch. And I'll show you that in just a second, talking about the garbage, just to make sure you understand exactly what he means. He meant that you were, kind of like feces, which could become fertilizer, but otherwise people don't want to be around. In any case, we'll get that in 1 second. Before we do, folks at Catholic Vote sponsored this program. They have a couple of different great articles that are out there in today's loop. You guys can go to catholicvote.org/loop if you want to get it. You could just go to catholicvote.org and sign up and get it in your email, which is a great decision. You guys will enjoy it. They've partnered up with RFK. They understand that we live in a politically real world, a pragmatic world where you don't have to agree with everybody. We don't agree with RFK's stance on abortion per se, but we understand that he cares about children and that he's worried about health, so we can make the alliances in politics where we need to without sacrificing the values that we otherwise go for. Those values are faith, family, and freedom. If you guys are interested in Catholic Vote, go to catholicvote.org. You don't have to be a Catholic to support what they're doing. They are trying to move the needle. They are making ad buys, and if you guys want to contribute to them, not only do they support what we do here, but they also support what's going on nationally, whether it be in the polling world or trying to motivate people with get out the vote cards. I told you guys earlier, I had my dad on, wrote 1,000 postcards that went out to Catholics that were in Arizona in order to get them motivated to go out and pull the lever and do the right thing and vote for life. There's only one candidate here that is not 100% pro-abortion. So that makes it pretty easy to do. Okay, promised Dank Brandon video. This is not Joe Biden. Lest anyone at the censorship regime over at YouTube think this is a obviously AI video on purpose that is done for comedic and commentary value. Again, kind of the quiet part out loud. I love this stuff.
My fellow Americans and the other half of you that is garbage, it's your boy Dank Brandon here. I wanted to take a moment to explain what I meant when I called half the country garbage. Look, garbage isn't always a bad thing. Sure, you stink and no one wants to see you, but you can become something useful when properly handled, like fertilizer. So basically, yes, you're shit, but you have the potential to be more. Anyways, vote for Cackles or don't. I don't give two shits anymore. Dank Brandon out.
I don't know what's wrong with that. I don't know what's wrong with me because I keep thinking those things are really funny. there's another good one. We'll end with that. The Dank Brandon stuff makes me really happy. Apparently, Joe Biden also went out and tried to bite an infant the other day. I'm sure he was just being like a grandfather who nibbles, but he's just old and doesn't know how to use his mouth anymore. It's so goofy. So let's move on to the only person who had a sane take on this, as far as I can tell. And you guys are going to be shocked. No, it wasn't Kamala Harris. Let's play her first. She's trying to run away from this. What else are you going to do? Again, we're not talking policy anymore. We're now talking about quote unquote gaffes or just the fact that we've demonized half the political spectrum. So she's not going to own it. But she tries to actually say that she's not that person. Good for her. We just don't believe her because there are two personalities in this race, right? One of them is a personality. The other one is a chameleon that just is whatever you need her. I'm sure she agrees with that. We've already seen her screaming at a podium saying that he can never again be allowed to stand behind the seal of the President of the United States of America. And she's angry about it for some reason. Like, I don't know what's pissing her off. Here she is trying to be more measured out on the tarmac.
President Biden just his comment last night about garbage.
Listen, I think that, first of all, he clarified his comments, but let me be clear, I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. You heard my speech last night and continuously throughout my career. I believe that the work that I do is about representing all the people, whether they support me or not. And as President of the United States, I will be a president for all Americans, whether you vote for me or not. That is my responsibility, and that's the kind of work that I've done my entire career, and I take it very seriously.
Yeah, we don't believe you. That's actually not true, but that is the right thing to say. So good for you. Here's the actual take that I think is being lost on those on the left. The reason why they don't have any faith in the media. Here you go. The historic low trust in the garbage media is more appropriate. This is Anna, what's her name? Kasparian. She's over at the Young Turks. And she's been increasingly become reasonable for some reason. It turns out that as you age, you sometimes can get less ridiculous. Check this out. She's saying exactly what should have been done and why people don't trust them and why you're supposed to hold your leaders accountable even when they screw up. This isn't supposed to be cheerleading. Then you can be a journalist. Otherwise, you're just a cheerleader.
Can we just please not provide cover for our leaders when they make mistakes like this? That was a terrible mistake that Biden made. It should not be justified. Again, if you're a private citizen and you have your personal views about the Republican electorate, that's on you and that's your business. You have not taken an oath to represent the country. You're not the president of the United States. And I don't know why anyone would think it's a good idea to celebrate or applaud political culture in this country that allows for the president to just regularly trash tens of millions of people that he himself is supposed to be representing. That is not a good culture to set. And things will just continue devolving. I don't think that this is a winning thing to do. I'm not proud of what Biden did. And honestly, the thing that frustrates me even more is that after he made those statements, even though he was on video making those statements, a bunch of people are totally gaslighting about how it didn't happen. It's totally made up. It's fake. It's a scary world that we're currently living in, where a lot of people, a lot of voters, a lot of people in the media, just not based in, their views are not based in reality at all. And they would rather lie to people in order to cover up a mistake or a terrible act of an individual in a position of power.
That is it in 90 seconds. They would rather cover up and they would rather push something that's obviously fake. They are not living in the same reality, or they obviously do see the same reality and they have decided that they are going to lie about it. I can't do that. I'm not that good of an actor. I had the same problem. We talked last night about masking and COVID shots and some of the initial things that got a lot of us on this bandwagon of we're just going to be skeptical because you've said some really dumb things and they don't check out. I've got some vaccine stuff that we're going to roll to in a little bit. I think that word actually triggers the algorithms on YouTube, which is even funnier. I'm just waiting to get kicked off. It's a badge of honor when they do. But the idea that that we're going to put on a mask is absurd. It was absurd at the time. It was dumb. Everyone knew it. Anybody who's ever worked in what they call chemical, biological, nuclear radiation, like all these kind of like the sea Bernie energy weapons. If you've worked in the military and you've ever gone through a mock-up of putting on the various different mop positions where you're wearing, a mask, then you're wearing a mask and a hood and the gloves and the pants and the duct tape around the gloves and making sure that you're in a sealed suit, essentially, you know that a virus can get through everything. And as we like to say on this program, if you can smell a fart through a pair of jeans, you can obviously get a virus through a paper mask. It was really clear to me. So when someone said, "Hey, will you wear a mask?" I was like, "Oh, sorry, I'm not an actor. And I just can't pretend with you, and I don't want to. I'm not being paid to do this. You can't force me to be an actor and enter your mass delusion." And that's continued on with this media that's doing the same thing. And that's how we ended up with this. I'm going to play more of this stuff than I normally do. I suggested this to Kash Patel yesterday at about 7 a.m. Central Time. Whether he took this or many minds saw the same opportunity that I did, when I said it to him, he seemed surprised like this was a good idea. There were people that were saying it the night before, but this obviously made it to the Trump circle where he decided to dress up like a garbage man. You'll notice he wasn't dressed up like a garbage man when we made yesterday's thumbnail where I showed him in the back of a garbage truck. That was always the right move. He did this masterful troll. Here he is talking about his people talking him into wearing the garbage truck outfit. This is why I think it's important, because we are in a battle of personalities, and one of them is very fake. And one of them sounds like a person who's got a sense of humor and is self-deprecating and has soft hands. I don't think Donald Trump is a hard man per se. He might have a hard line on things, but he's lived a life of privilege, and he doesn't shy away from that. He doesn't act like he's not. They call him the blue-collar billionaire. Remember that was the big deal, that he eats McDonald's and he's just like us? He's not like us. He doesn't carry his own luggage, but he has enough self-awareness to know that he's not like that. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have Kamala Harris claiming, "I was from a middle-class family. I know a lot of middle-class families. I grew up in the middle class." Maybe the upper middle class, but very few of my friends and very few of my friends' parents had double PhDs in the household. That's not a common thing to find that is a strange animal, even in the upper middle class, to find multiple advanced degrees, particularly for someone who's 60 years old. That was a very rare thing in the 70s. So I don't believe Kamala Harris's story. I believe Donald Trump when he says, like, "Yeah, I haven't done this thing in a long time," or "I saw this thing and I thought it was difficult." And it's not a difficult thing for you and me because he's self-effacing about it. So here he is getting talked into wearing this suit. And the reason is the funniest reason that you could have for a guy who's a little bit older and a little bit overweight, because he is. He said it was slimming. What's the best? Check this out.
So this outfit, is when he called us all garbage. How stupid. What a stupid word. That blows deplorable away, don't you think? Of course, I thought irredeemable when she said deplorable or irredeemable. I thought irredeemable was actually worse, but deplorable seemed to catch up. But this garbage stuff blows it away. So I'm in this beautiful plane. I'm enjoying myself. I have a wonderful suit on. And one of my people came in and said, "Sir, the word garbage is the hottest thing right now out there. The hottest thing out there. Sir, would you like to drive a garbage truck?" Now, we're about, 30 minutes from landing. We had to do this pretty quick. I said, "It's sort of cool, though, isn't it? Because, And I said, I think that's okay, but, I don't feel comfortable wearing a suit." And they pulled up this garbage truck. I don't know how the hell they did it so fast. I have very capable people. They put a big sign on the truck. Did you see it? I think they showed it. Yeah. And then they said, "Sir, we have a vest." I said, "Well, should I leave my suit on and put it over the vest?" But that doesn't look very good, right? That doesn't look good. So I said, "All right, look, let me take it off." And then I actually said, I climbed into the truck, but so I said, "How the hell do you get into this truck? It's way up high. It's a big one." This was a beauty. I said, "You didn't have to buy it that big, right? You have to get it that big?"
He goes on and he says the reason he wears the vest for the speech is because his people told him it looks slimming, which is kind of a vain thing, but it's silly and it's real. This is Trump at his best, for whatever it's worth. It's a human being telling a human being story. It has nothing to do with politics. It just has to be a dude who's used to wearing a suit, who's used to looking fancy, who flies around in his own plane, and people telling him, hey, you should get in a garbage truck. And he was like, really? A garbage truck? Here's another little piece of it. He's talking about wearing the vest up there and getting into the truck. Him saying that this is the most human story. You can see your own uncle, you can see your own father, you can see one of your friends if you're in the same age bracket telling the story over a couple of beers and people cracking up about it because he just says it in a very authentic way, in a way that I don't see the other candidate having an ability to do because she's not an authentic person. Never has been. She's never once just gone off script and just told a story about that step was really high on a truck, which is not a big deal for me. It's not a big deal for many of you. You could climb into a truck and you would never tell anybody about it. But you're not a billionaire who has people helping you get in your vehicle every day and carrying your luggage for you. So this is kind of on point. Anyway, it's also really funny just because it's so human.
So I said, man, if I don't get up there, this is going to be very embarrassing. These stupid people, they'll say, he's cognitively and physically impaired. And I can't do that when I'm alongside of this great athlete. I got to get up to that. So look, the first stair is like up here. I'm saying, shit. So I had the adrenaline going and I made it.
He goes, shit, because he sees the size of the step. What's more real than that? Like, it's just a thing. It's just a thing that you look at and you go, that's what a guy who doesn't climb up into steps like that would do, for sure. These guys are playing and they know that. And I think that that's the best part of it. Vivek is actually younger and he doesn't quite get it. He went out and did like a piece of a shift or helped load up a couple of things. He looks sort of ridiculous, but I'm so glad he did it. And I'm glad they wore the vest. I'm glad they are doing the cosplay of the thing that they were being made fun of because what it shows is humility. This is not me insulting any of them. It's me acknowledging the reality, just like they are. Vivek's worth what, like $600 million? JD Vance worth $100+ million. These are very wealthy men. They don't have to do stuff like this. But them going out and doing it is the same thing as the clip we showed you weeks ago or a week and a half ago of Donald Trump going in and being a bellman at his own hotel that he owns, where his name is above the freaking door. And it's on every towel. And it's on all the napkins. And it's on the bill. And he went out and became a bellman. And he went out and he handed out, some food. He was doing his apprentice routine. He went out and cleaned some sinks. And he spoke highly of the people that work for him. I think he actually thinks that way. Does he think that that's a job he's ever going to want to do? No, of course not. Never. But it's human to go out and appreciate the people that work for you. And that's the thing that so many people that are in Donald Trump's orbit see, that people that think he is a fascist or a tyrant or Hitler never see, and they refuse to see. You cannot have as many people love you as Donald Trump has and be a complete fake. I don't believe it. It's too hard because there's too many smart people that I've met that really think really highly of him in person. And so this in a rally is way better Donald Trump than a lot of the political speeches he gives. Like, him being a human being is better. We've already seen what the policies look like. We've already seen him in office. It generally worked out well. There were some things that were not great. Not my favorite stuff on the vaccine. Not my favorite stuff on some of the other ways he handled things. He's not conservative. He's a populist. But between the two, I was asked the question last night on our call-in show, could things be much worse for you under Kamala Harris, a Biden part 2, like objectively. And if not for myself, then for guys like Steve Baker, for journalists that are actually doing journalism and asking real questions, for guys like Garrett O'Boyle, who's still in a protracted fight against the DOJ, which has millions and millions of dollars against a pro bono attorney who also happens to represent Donald Trump because they've jumped in with some of the suspendables. Some of the people that support Trump have also volunteered to help out my friends. So I can't not be behind this guy getting into office, even if he doesn't happen to be my favorite candidate. He's my favorite candidate that's in the race. That's probably something I should have said earlier. By a lot, because there's no other chance. And he's funny and he does these things. So anyway, I made a little video last night, I guess. Climbed up into the truck and this was my instinct. When I saw him in the truck, this is what my head actually did. If you guys want to know the inner workings, this is what it sounds like. I think in movie clips, and this is the movie clip I thought.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did it.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
It's a totally unforced error. How do you like my garbage truck, he says. And he got up in there. Seriously, in my brain, it's Jeff Goldblum. You did it, you crazy SOB, you did it. Just like they had in the movie Jurassic Park, where he finally figured out how to clone a dinosaur. It's the same attitude. It's like, I can't believe that he did that. But that's what he needed to do. It's perfect. The reason why you have to do that is because they're running this wild game. This is CNN's lead story right now. Trump's plan to radically remake government with RFK Jr. and Elon Musk coming into view. Like, stop trying to sell me so hard, CNN. Our government needs a reboot more desperately than anything else in American history. It is so shaky and weak and full and bloated and stupid and unnecessary. It's full of the most unnecessary jobs, positions, agencies that could ever exist. It exists for its own sake at this point. And having people that come in that realize that it is pushing an agenda that is objectively bad for the people living under it, and then also someone who has a business sense that says, I'm willing to take hits because dangerous freedom, because living under communism is not preferable, that maybe some drunk driving, people drinking in their cars, at least we're going to put the responsibility where it belongs on the individual. That guy's stepping in. That all sounds really good. In a video obtained by CNN, RFK says Trump promised to give him sweeping power over multiple agencies. This is the story, and they're freaked out about it. This is the lead story that they ran. What he will do if he wins. So here's why they get why the CNN crying about this gets nobody to change their mind that's thought about it, and it also doesn't move anybody in the independent sphere. Because it used to be a very left-leaning position to say that giving children a bunch of vaccines, that the childhood vaccine schedule was too aggressive or unnecessary altogether. That used to be a very left-leaning talking point, for whatever that's worth. The people that did that were in Oregon and Washington and Northern California. They were crunchy granola moms that didn't agree with anything that we're saying right now on this program. And they were not blue-collar. And for that to align with the garbage men that are picking up your trash that allow society to function and civil America to continue to exist the way that we're used to it. And then you've got this 32-year-old journalism school graduate. She used to be I've just read I read her little bio, which is from Wikipedia, so for whatever that's worth. But the claim is that she was initially a chemistry student. She chose a chemistry major and then thought that was too hard, is my guess. So this is Caitlin Collins, who, unmarried, no children, as she mentions, not a doctor, pushes back against Donald Trump's transition chair, who's saying some things. She asked a question. I'm going to tell you why these things are so bad. I'm going to actually give a little quick instruction for anybody that wants to understand how these interviews would be not ridiculous. Instead, they're so obviously gaslit. They're so obviously garbage, as Anna Kasparian talked about. There's no one that's going to take these people credibly. And they did it to themselves, despite all their journalism school credentials.
One other person who was on stage recently and was talking about coming into the administration is RFK Jr. He said that Trump has promised him control of the public health agencies, HHS, which would be also, CDC, FDA, USDA, all of these agencies. Is that true? Has Trump promised him basically the HHS job?
So I spent 2.5 hours this week with Bobby Kennedy Jr. And it was the most extraordinary thing because let's face it, we've all heard on the news all sorts of sort of snarky comments about him. And I said, so tell me, how's it going to go? And he said, why don't you just listen to me explain things? And what he explained was when he was born, we had 3 vaccines and autism was 1 in 10,000. Now a baby's born with 76 vaccines because in 1986, they waived product liability for vaccines. And here's the best one. They started paying the people at the NIH, right? They pay them a piece of the money for the vaccine companies. Wait a minute, let me finish. And so all of these vaccines came out without product liability. So what happened now? Autism is 1 in 34.
Okay,
amazing.
Neither of us are doctors. Vaccines are safe. RFK,
Why do you think vaccines are safe? There's no product liability anymore. They're not proven.
Kids get them and they're fine.
Why do you think they're fine?
But because they're proven scientifically to be so.
How about this? There was 1 in 10,000 people with autism. We all know.
When you start arguing with your guest that you are interviewing and you brought them on because they're going to say the thing that they think, and then you are going to listen and ask questions, you have failed. You're not a journalist. You're an advocate. You're a mouthpiece. Listen to how fast she pushed back. Vaccines are fine. The kids are fine. Vaccines are safe. This is the thing she just said. That's not an interview. That's a discussion. That's a debate of which she's just admitted she's not qualified to be involved in. And if I had to choose between someone who's in his 60s and a 32-year-old journalist who's very pretty but has no children and no experience with this stuff and has never seen it up front, who's never sat in a doctor's office with a pediatrician with a newborn baby and then seen them come at you with a bunch of syringes, I don't think I care what she thinks, and neither do other Americans. There's a reason why there's a historic low in trust on these things. These people have beclowned themselves to the point where they are a laugh line. I'm going to dig this out of the archive. She went on Stephen Colbert, which is a comedy show that also accidentally tells the truth sometimes. And here's a little thing, not meant to be a laugh line, but if it is, it is. Even the audience in a left-leaning Stephen Colbert audience understands. Did I say audience twice? Probably. Here we go.
Trump has kind of been thrown on his heels by this, and he's not really sure how to go after Vice President Harris. He knew his attack lines on President Biden. He really has struggled with how to go after someone who's 20 years younger than him, who is a different gender, a different race. It's kind of been this moment where he has not been able to coalesce around a single attack line.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is. Oh, I know. CNN makes a... I know
that's supposed to be a laugh line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is. What?
The audience knows that the CNN people are a laugh line and that saying that they're objective is absurd. Even a left-leaning audience knows this. Why wouldn't they? Here's how you do a real interview. For whatever it's worth, Caitlin, you should take notes because this is actually not that hard to do. And you probably actually did learn this in J school. I didn't, but I know how to do an interview. If somebody says something you don't agree with, which is to say that there used to be 3 vaccines given to infants in the childhood vaccine schedule in 1986. Then we had a fundamental change, which was under Reagan, by the way, where they removed the liability from these products. And now we have 72 or 76 or whatever the schedule looks like. And then you say, oh, that's very interesting. Are you trying to make the point that this correlation is in fact causation? That's a question. You can ask that and then let them defend their position. And they'll say, well, there's this indicate this, and this. You don't have to say, we're not a doctor, but vaccines are safe and kids are fine. And then you'd say, are there any other factors that could come out that would explain this? What are you suggesting? Like, there are questions you can ask that can lead to an answer if you know how to do them. But she didn't do any of those things. You can question the data. You can question the legitimacy of his conclusions. You can question his sources. This is how you do an interview. And at the end of it, you don't make a summation. You let your audience decide based on whether or not the guy made a strong case. Because you, as a journalist, don't have any outcome. You're not looking for an outcome. What you're looking for is accuracy. That's not what they do. It's not what our DOJ does. I've told you guys that one of the friends of our show is a guy named Bill Shipley, who does a lot of J6 defense. One of the things he said is that the federal government's job as a prosecutor has only one thing they should be looking for: fair process. That the process needs to be fair, and that means you did your job as a federal prosecutor. Not that you're supposed to win, not that the government prevails in whatever it is they are prosecuting. But with January 6 cases and a lot of the stuff that we call weaponized government, the problem is they are looking for an outcome in the same way that Caitlin Collins is looking for an outcome. There is a predetermined conclusion of what is correct. This is the lead story, or was the lead story, as I was prepping this morning at ABC. We've seen CNN's lead story. They're worried about Elon Musk and RFK. Today, ABC is worried about this. Civil rights groups warn of potential voter suppression ahead of Election Day. Advocates vow to fight voter suppression before and after the ballots are cast. This is what they want to focus on. This is a DOJ that has chosen an outcome. They said we are going to put our money and our mouth, we are going to put our efforts behind making sure the maximum number of people can vote. Whether or not it involves fraud is irrelevant. So they're not interested in fair process, which is what you would do if you said we are going to eliminate fraud and make sure that nobody is kept away from voting, which would be fraud, by the way. It would be fraudulent to say that you're a legal voter and you cannot. In the meantime, they are trying to choose outcomes. There's a historic low trust, not just in CNN or in journalists. It's also in government and institutions more broadly. And they all squandered every bit of credibility they had in 2020 and then I think it even goes before that. They started doing this in 2015. We talked about a whistleblower yesterday indicating that James Comey was willing to investigate a presidential campaign on an off-the-books criminal investigation into Donald Trump and those around him. That's how you do it. They don't get credibility. You don't get to say that we're worried about voter suppression when I have seen zero evidence of that. I've seen a lot of evidence of potential fraud, and it's worth looking into if you work for the DOJ. That should be your most important focus, is fairness, free and fair elections, as they continue to say, and securing them. You don't get to just assume that that's true. You don't get to just say vaccines are safe and that's it. You're not a fiat. You're not an authority that anyone trusts at this point. And the DOJ is equally bad. And we know that because they're suing a number of states trying to keep more people on the voter laws, even though the states are the ones who run the elections. Elections are not a federal matter. They are run every single state. They do it differently. That's why they're all handled differently. There's some overarching ways that they can be handled. And there has to be, people in the Constitution that actually lists in some of our amendments now, because of slavery, because of Jim Crow, some of the nasty things that Democrats have done historically. But you have to actually let all the states conduct the elections the way that they do it. And they have a lot of leeway to do so. The federal government has stepped in only to keep people on that have no business getting there. That's wild. It's truly wild stuff. And it's kind of new. This is not new to us now. Alterations, videos, what they used to call, remember they called them cheap fakes going after Joe Biden? He was the victim of cheap fakes, deceptively edited video. This is one that is making a round right now. Let me throw this up here. This is from NBC. This is NBC's lead story, I believe. At least it was at the time that we went to start the stream. Trump says he would, quote, protect women, whether or not women like it. Okay, he did say that. I'm going to play you the side-by-side clips of what they edited and what actually was said, as usual. Vice President Kamala Harris quickly highlighted his remarks, saying that Donald Trump thinks that he should make decisions about what you do with your body, indicating that him saying he would protect women whether they like it or not was something that had to do with abortion. They released a video that was the same. They are, if you're just listening, what you're going to miss is a whole bunch of clips as he repeats his voice, as they play it back over and over again on a loop. They are showing articles talking about his abortion policy. But that's not what he's talking about. I'm going to show you the video right after that, which shows you what he was actually talking about. This is exactly the kind of lie that happens when you have no substance in your campaign, when you are a personality that is unlikable and you're going to try to attack Donald Trump. The thing is, it's going to be a referendum. As we heard, people want it to be a change election. It's hard to do that when you're the incumbent. And as a vice president, you are a de facto incumbent. Listen to this altered video stuff. It's really ugly stuff, too.
They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say. I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. 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 I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. Kamala has imported criminal migrants from prisons and jails, from insane asylums and mental institutions all over the world, from Venezuela to the Congo, including savage criminals who assault, rape, and murder our women and girls. Anyone who would let monsters kidnap and kill our children does not belong anywhere near the Oval Office. And my people told me about 4 weeks ago, I was saying, no, I want to protect the people. I want to protect the women of our country. I want to protect the women. Sir, please don't say that. Why? They said, we think it's very inappropriate for you to say. I said, why? I'm president. I want to protect the women of our country. They said. They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say. Pay these guys a lot of money. Can you believe it? I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them.
The whole point was that he was interested in protecting women from people that come from other countries that are criminal aliens. And they made it about abortion because they can't stand on the border. They can't talk about that and win. So they lied. That's a lie. That's fake. That is putting one thing up and acting like it is something that it is not. Again, one of you in the chat mentioned this is the good men and women on both sides argument they said about the rally that happened in Charlottesville. It's the same kind of idea. No doubt about it. It's the same sort of dishonest movement. And you do that when you don't have the facts on your side. You have to alter them and lie. All right. That's kind of a heavy toll on there. I think we have a lot of fun. We can still laugh about the fact that he decided to dress up like a garbage man. I'm going to actually play our outro like we normally do, and then I will leave you sort of a longer video of Vivek Ramaswamy, a man worth a lot of money, who's not very big. He's really, really small in person, for whatever that's worth, folks. Because like I've met him, and he's slimmer than me, and he's like probably the same height or shorter. He's like 5'8" and like $125 or something. He's a really nice man. He's very bright, but he's not like a physical worker, and probably never has been. And he hasn't had to be, so good for him. That's the brilliance of America. But I've got a video of him like running around on a trash truck, and it just doesn't work for the audio show. So if you guys want to see that, you can go to KyleSerafin.com, and you can watch that. I'll put the entire clip of Donald Trump talking about how he had a slimming vest on, and that's how they convinced him. It's great humor. It's great comedy. KyleSerafin.com is where the local channel are. That's where we post the links to these articles if you want to read them yourself, especially the stuff about what's going on in the Gulf of Maine. That should be something that regular blue-collar people should understand. The people that would otherwise be inclined to vote and think about old school Democrats, that's something that they should check out. So we'll put those all over there. You guys can enjoy that. I do have a little palate cleanse for you. Again, a little more dank Brandon, which is quite good. Before we do that, let's do a 5-star review coming in from our friends over on Apple. If you listen to the Apple podcast, you guys can leave us a 5-star review, and you can leave us a nice one. You can leave us an angry 2-star review, or you can leave us a nice 5-star review like this one, which is coming from Buddies06. Grateful listener, 5 stars. I've enjoyed listening. Given your background, you have a unique platform. I appreciate your perspective on X as an ex-agent, and we are often fed information from people who lack life experience or skill. My favorite episode is when you had your dad on first time. God bless. We had my dad on last night for some calls. He didn't answer any calls, but he did share some stories that were pretty funny, including something that had to do with a certain type of sexual toy in a radio station in the 1970s in San Francisco, which reminded us, our little PSA. Do we have it?
Goes into your butt. Nothing accidentally goes into your butt.
Nothing accidentally does. All right, here's your little palate cleanse of the day as we go off into the world. This is Dank Brandon. Yes, this is AI altered. It's still funny, and it still sounds like real Joe Biden. You could almost see that if he was unplugged and they took the mics and the cameras away, he might actually act like this.
My fellow Americans and delicious babies, it's your boy Dank Brandon here. I wanted to address the footage you saw of me biting an infant tonight. Look, to be honest, it's been a rough couple of fucking months for yours truly. First VP Cackles, Barack and George Clooney, who you may know from famous dog shit films such as Batman and Robin, planned a coup on me. Then the sons of bitches took away my supply of adrenochrome. So tonight, in a moment of weakness, I decided to cut out the middleman and go right to the source. What can I say except have you ever tried baby? Absolutely delicious. Yeah, I bit some thighs and suckled some toes, big deal. What are they going to do? 25th Amendment me. I fucking dare you. Anyways, vote for Cackles. Or write in D's nuts for all I care. I don't give a rat's ass anymore. Dank Brandon out.
Dank Brandon out. Happy Halloween to all of you guys as we go off into the night and we go off into your day on Thursday. If you guys want to support the program and you're looking to arm yourself, I had a question over on Twitter yesterday that I ended up answering about Shield Arms. We got the promo codes over there fixed. It's all caps, KYLE. They bumped it up from 5% to 10%. That should include firearms. That's a really good deal if you guys want to go look at some outstanding products. If you carry a Glock for a living, if you carry a Glock as an armed citizen, check them out, particularly if you're in the micro Glock game. They've got great accessories and things like that. ShieldArms.com, promo code KYLE, all caps over there. Go check them out. Montana-based company, Americans. It's a shooter company, run by shooters, for shooters. You guys won't be sad that you did. It's what I carry every single day. In fact, I've got one sitting here on the desk. I just had to pull it out of a weapon. There's one. That's an S15 with a +2. Check out Shield Arms. All right, go off into the night. Go hang out with your kids. Make sure that their costumes are safe. Check their candy. Look for needles, which we used to do in the 80s. Did anyone ever actually find a needle in their stuff, or was that all just like fake stuff? Don't eat the candy that's already been opened, right? Don't eat homemade baked goods, whatever, blah, 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 blah. God bless you guys. I'll see you again tomorrow for a Friendly Friday. We'll see if Steve Friend eats any candy on Halloween night. You get the feeling he probably doesn't, but maybe we'll get a totally lit Steve Friend. See you then. Best. And then stick around if you want to see the Vivek doing the garbage truck routine. It'll play after the outro.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.
All right, let's do it, man. I got it.
You got it?
Yeah. Tell me, what are we doing here?
Right up to the left.
Okay. Right up to here.
Yep. Come up, turn around.
always lift the lid open. Wait, is it on? Yeah. All right, sweet. Lift open, and then what are we doing?
Pull them both out.
Pull them both out. You doing it right? Pull this one back too, or you good?
Yeah, you're good right now.
Sweet.
Wait for it to go all the way up.
Pretty good machinery, actually. It kind of works. Should I pull it back again?
Nope, now just pull. This goes up.
Should I pull it?
Yeah, pull it out.
Pull it out?
Yep. Push it in and it'll come back out.
All right, man. Let's do it. Thank you. Looks pretty good. Yes. The machinery's good. It's good machinery. I mean, it's like.
You didn't even have to use the bat once.
No, I know exactly. Well, sometimes you might need to, actually.
Just in case.
It's a. The machine works really well, man. All right, let's get some more.